Okay, we are live. Hello, everybody. Hi, Ravenclaw, welcome. I just got started, so the topic today is gay Christian is not an oxymoron. It's a really simple idea, and I want to talk about it, and I'd love if there are any gay Christians who want to join the chat and share their stories like we did this morning. That would be amazing. But until then, we will see where it goes. So far, I think I have nobody watching, which is fine. I'm sure somebody will join here in a bit. And we'll see where we go. Hi, Butterfly, welcome. Nice to see you. Glad to have you. We're talking about the idea that gay Christian is not an oxymoron. And hi, yeah, I want to open it up if anybody wants to be part of the chat and wants to come on and talk live. That would be amazing. No guest requests yet, so we'll just keep an eye on that. But I am looking forward to talking to someone. I did that this morning with a couple of people, and it was really great. So, once again, the topic is gay Christian is not an oxymoron. So, yeah. I'm also live on Facebook. Now, I've had 2 viewers. Trying to understand all these things. Real-time viewer count. Okay, that's the viewer count. Who's viewing now, I guess? How many have viewed? Okay, yeah. Different things. Oh, new message. Oh, I'm so sorry. Butterfly says, I'm gay and grew up Christian. I still have faith in God, but I walked away from organized religion. On my end, it doesn't have a request box. Well, let me see if I can invite you. I'm not sure why it doesn't have a request box. I'm still figuring out this whole TikTok live thing. I've only had enough followers to do that for maybe a couple of weeks, and only just last night figured out how to, oh, here we go. Invite Butterfly. Okay, I just sent you an invite. Let's see what happens with that. Oh, I've got 17 people watching on YouTube as well. So it looks like Butterfly is connecting. That could take a minute. Everything is slow on this computer. I'm starting to research a new computer because this one is several years old and it is slow. Let's just put it that way. It is slow. So it looks like I'm up, but I can't talk. Well, it's still showing the little cyan and red dots going round and round and round. So I'm not sure why you can't yet talk, but give it a second. Maybe it'll sort itself out. Oh, went to Mac. Yeah, the problem is I couldn't do TikTok live on a Mac, and from what I understood, or at least that's what an AI told me when I did a little bit of research, but yeah. Oh, let me try again. Let me invite you again. I don't know what happened. Something went weird. Oh. I don't know. All right, we'll see if we can make it work. If not, you can just put things in the chat and I will read them. Hi, Wayne Bell on YouTube. Okay, start. Let's see. No, I don't want to do show. I don't know what that means. Yeah, I guess if you can't talk, it's not going to work. You're not muted though. So yeah, just go ahead and share in the comments. You said that you're a Christian, but you walked or grew up Christian rather, but you walked away from organized religion. I haven't walked away from organized religion, but I really get it. There is a song. I don't know if you've heard Lauren Daigle's song, "Losing My Religion." It is. She sings, "I'm losing my religion to find you," meaning God. And my church was very judgmental, so I quit going, Butterfly says. Yeah, that is the problem. I run into those people multiple times a day in the comments on my videos, so yeah, no. I know what you're talking about. There are some very accepting churches here, though. That's great. I hope you found one if that's what you're looking for. I have found one that is very accepting, very loving, and still within my particular denomination. So that's really helpful for me, because I'm not ready to leave that yet. But at the same time, I just can't be at a place where my gay and trans friends aren't welcome. And by welcome, I mean like really welcome, you know, really, really just loved and accepted with open arms. She says, I assume she, if you've got different pronouns, let me know. I sang in the choir and had way too much soul for most of them, LOL. Yeah, I get that. Maureen on YouTube says, what is it name? My name or what name? My name on TikTok, Lisa-Reynoso 2. My name on, yeah. You can, Reynoso's Reynoso. That, you can look me up there. If you want to hop on the live there and join me, that'd be great. Love to chat. You're a he, so my apologies. Yeah, so, yeah, let's get the pronouns right. I'm she, her, hers. This is Midnight. She's a she. Or an it, I guess. I don't know. She has a pink collar, so she. And she's usually shy. Most people don't get to see her. So, but she knows nobody on the screen can do anything. So we're discussing gay Christian. Butterfly says, when Mariah Carey is your favorite singer and they sing bland, I kind of stood out. Yeah, you know, at the last church I went to, I was sometimes the only one standing to sing because I just cannot sing if I'm not like expressing. It just feels wrong to sit and sing. I have to just express what's in my heart. And now I go to a church where everybody does that, or, well, not everybody, but, you know, lots of people do, so no big deal, right? Yeah. So Maureen on YouTube, if you look for any of the titles of any of my videos on that I have here on YouTube of my shorts, the same titles will be on TikTok. You'll be able to find me that way. Butterfly says, I want to go to a real gospel church that's cool with me. Yeah, that's when, what can I say? I don't know where you live, and I'm not going to ask you that because that's not fair. But have to get going, but I was already following you, so I'll see you back on. Yeah, I will try to be on frequently over the next few days till like middle of next week, and then classes start again, and then I will be really busy, and will just do the best I can to do a live now and then. But good to have you. Yeah, thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate the chat, and I enjoyed it. Sorry the guest thing didn't work out. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. So, yeah. All right, let's see. We got anybody else here? Nobody else on Instagram. I mean, on TikTok right now. We have one person on YouTube. Hi, whoever's watching. I'm sure somebody else will show up here in a little bit. Let's see. I do not want to co-host, so where are we at? Hello, somebody just joined and then they disappeared again. Sorry about that. I know I'm not talking at the moment, or I wasn't for a minute. So we're talking about gay Christian is not an oxymoron. And I just talked to a guy who shared that he's kind of stepped away from organized religion, but still believes in God, and he's trying to find a church that will accept him the way he is, you know? And I get that. I get that. I actually moved churches recently because they were the one I was going to, the one I had been in for like half a decade, more than that, 6-7 years maybe. The church where I had grown and come to, I deconstructed and rebuilt my faith in that church. And then, you know, I invited a trans woman, and she didn't feel welcome. About 3 or 4 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, I think, she came. She didn't feel welcome, so she left. I don't blame her. I think I went 1 more week and then I quit going too. I started hearing rumors about what was going on, and behind the scenes, and I said, no, I don't want to be a part of a church like that anymore. So I up and moved to another church. It's an hour away. Fortunately, I have a hybrid. Welcome. Hey, Max, thanks for the hearts, if that was you. So I've been moved. Said I'm not going to stay at the church where my trans friend and my gay friends aren't welcome, and so I started driving. In fact, I'm going there tomorrow to help out with a kids program. It's kind of like a mini VBS. They're doing 3 or 4 programs for the kids over a couple of days. Friday and Saturday, Friday evening and Saturday. So I have volunteered to be part of that, and I'm very much looking forward to it. Still don't know where I'm going to sleep tomorrow night. Maybe in my car. I don't know. I hope not. Actually, I don't think I have to sleep in my car. I know that one of the ladies at church will let me stay on her couch if I need to. I just was hoping somebody would offer rather than you know, making me ask. But we'll see. But yeah, I've actually invited a couple of gay friends to my new church, and they both felt really welcome. One of them reached out to me afterward. He's like, the pastor and the church secretary both texted me this week. I feel so welcome. He's like, it was so great. I didn't expect that. And I thought, wow, you know. And then later he shared about, hi Kevin, he shared about how he'd been to another church some years back, and like the pastor just completely ignored him even though he was kind of standing around and, he was a guest, he wanted to be welcome, and but he kind of exudes gay vibes, just his tone of voice, and he often comes wearing a wig with longish hair and different things, and it's pretty obvious anybody's got a functioning gaydar that he's gay. But at my church, everyone's just like loved on him, big hug, hope you can come again, even if it's just once a month, we'd love to have you. That's the kind of church I want to be part of. So who is here? Let's see, Aston, welcome. Kevin Mann, respectfully asking, do you know all sexual relations outside of one man, one woman is sinful? Well, thank you for the respectful question. Do I know this? That's a really good question. And my answer is no, because I don't see that. I see all kinds of exploitative and harmful relationships being prohibited, like gang rape, to be more specific. I see temple prostitution being forbidden. I see lust-driven affairs, which would be wrong in any context, same as the first two as well. I also see that exploitation, which was something that was quite common, where people would sexually exploit other people, is forbidden as well. And there is something else that might be, so this is a little bit of a, I don't want to say it's a stretch, it's not commonly talked about, but it's something that makes sense to me. When Paul uses a certain Greek word that probably he invented, most scholars think that he probably invented it because he was the first one to write it down, as far as anyone can tell. That word is arsenokoitai, and it is for two words, man and bed. Kevin Mann, let me finish my thought and I'll get back to your question. So arsenokoitai means man and bed, which is a bed being a euphemism for smex, right? And we have to be careful here on TikTok, right? So the interesting thing is that word, when it's is only used a few times, and it only ever appears in lists. Now, if I gave you a list of words and they were all fruits and you had never heard of one of them, you could assume that the one you'd never heard of was a fruit. But would you be able to tell me anything about that fruit? How sweet it is, what color it is, or anything like that? No, just that it's a fruit. So this word appears in a list of sins. So we know it's something sinful. That is a given. But what exactly it is, we don't know for sure. We can guess. What I think is that it is actually a euphemism. Just like we use the word screwed, which is a kind of sexual term, but we use it for very non-sexual things. Or the F word, being effed up, right? I wouldn't use that word, but it is in our vernacular, and we use that word to refer to things that have nothing to do with smex, right? So it is very possible that it was used to refer to exploitation, because that word appears in lists outside of the Bible, and it is never in the context of sexual conduct. That's a very interesting thing. Now, about Kevin's question, can you give any verse where God instituted any other marital relation other than in Genesis 2:24? Of course not, because that is not actually a marriage. That is just a union in Genesis. God paired people because that's the only way you could have children, and having children was the mandate at the time. But in the New Testament, Paul never gives marriage as a reason to be, God never gives marriage as a reason, procreation as a reason for marriage. Reasons for marriage and I'm doing this off the top of my head, so you have to forgive me. Paul talks about it's better to marry than to burn with passion. He never made any exceptions for that. And let's just slow down. I'm going through these one at a time. I'm keeping an eye on your questions, though, Kevin. Marriage is given, it's better to marry than to burn with passion. Marriage was actually discouraged by Paul in 1 Corinthians 7, which is the same place that last reference was from, because he felt that a person who was unencumbered by marriage would be more capable of helping and serving the Lord. So marriage is never, it is mentioned as an illustration of Christ and the church, right? But it's never given as a reason. Marriage is never a reason for, or procreation, sorry, is never given as a reason for marriage in the New Testament. So Kevin Mann, it was given in Matthew 19:6, requiring Genesis 2:24. Okay, so just real quick, I want to see what somebody on YouTube says. Paul was a funny dude. He admits to making things up from his own mind in 1 Corinthians 7, verse 14. Yes, quite a bit of 1 Corinthians 7 is his own thoughts, which I think holds some weight, but they're not some. They're the words of what I would say a wise man. Take them for what they're worth, right? If they apply, great. If they don't work for you, they're not God's commandments, right? But back to Matthew 6. So Jesus was quoting Genesis 2:24, but he wasn't talking about marriage. He was talking about divorce. So is a sinful Christian, somebody said 206, that's not a complete sentence, and I'm not sure what you're asking. If you can clarify, and we can talk about it. Yes, Genesis 2:24, they were one flesh. Yes, one flesh. Adam said, bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. This was, and before he said this was woman, for she was taken out of man. This is the idea of one flesh. It's not just within marriage. It is, marriage, yes, but it's not just within marriage, actually, because Paul talks about he who is joined to a harlot is one flesh with the harlot. So it's not just marriage. Unless we're saying that everyone who sleeps with somebody outside of marriage is now married. So I still haven't gotten an answer on that. Let's see, somebody else said, Paul also states in 1 Corinthians 9:22 that he behaves differently in front of different people as a tactical approach. Yes, actually he does. Now, I could be thinking of different verses, but what I'm thinking of is where he says, to the Jews, I became like a Jew that I might win the Jews. To the Greeks, I was as a Greek. To those who are under the law, as under the law. To the weak, I became weak. To those who are without law, as without law, but under the law to Christ, he says. So, yes, Paul, and you see this in his sermons. When he's in a synagogue, he's talking about the history of Israel and the prophecies of Jesus. And when he's talking to a group of pagans who are about to offer sacrifices to him because they think he's Mercury, right? He's like, no, this God made the heavens and the world, and he gave us good things, and he doesn't want us to worship idols. He wants us to worship him. So he comes from a different approach. He comes with nature and the things they can see. When he's talking to the Greeks, or these were Asians, I guess, who didn't know God, he was talking to them, and you'd see a completely different approach in when he was in Athens in Acts 17. He took a very logic-based approach, and he quoted Greek authors, I believe from two different poems. In him we live and move and have our being came from one poem. and we are also his offspring came from another poem. And those were written about pagan deities, but he applied them to the God of the universe, the God of creation. And so these, Paul was able to adapt to his audience. So let's see, Shawnee, I'm going to say Shawnee. That's it. You remembered the verse. Galatians 2 is funny too because Paul talks about arguing with Peter and James. Paul was funny. I love it. Galatians was one of the first books of the Bible I memorized. Not the first one, but one of the ones I memorized as a teenager. And I remember that whole exchange between Peter and Paul. Paul says, when Peter came to Antioch, I withstood him to the face. Now, Old King James, sorry, I don't know how it is. But he confronted him personally, in public, in front of all these Gentiles, because Peter had been eating with the Gentiles, because remember his vision in Acts chapter 10, he sees this vision of all these animals come down, and he's trying to understand it, and while he's trying to figure it out, he gets this, the Holy Spirit's like, there's some people at the gate, you should go with them, whatever they want, see what they want and go with them. So he went with them, and he ends up in a Gentile's house, and the vision all of a sudden was like, oh, duh, God was telling me not to call any man common or unclean, because they thought all the Gentiles were unclean and only the Jews could be saved. And God's saying, no, I'm not exclusive. Right? I'm not exclusive. And so God, this is my kitty. You want to say hi, Midnight? Anyway, I see your comment, RJ, and I'll get to that in a second. Let me just finish this thought. So Peter realized that, God isn't exclusive. I can eat with Gentiles, no big deal. So he ate with the Gentiles. He defended himself in the next chapter in Acts 11. And then he gets all the way down to, gets up to Antioch, and he was eating with the Gentiles, no big deal. And then some people from Jerusalem came, and they were kind of exclusive. And Peter's like, maybe if I eat with the Gentiles, they're going to think bad of me. I'm going to lose influence. So he kind of goes off with the Jews. And Paul's like, hey, wait a minute. You can't do that. People are going to follow your example. You're going to create division. Shawnee says, I would love to hear Peter's version of that argument, though. In Acts 21, they made Paul take the Nazarite vow. So I guess Paul had to submit to them, which people often neglect to mention. Yeah, I'm actually working my way through the book of Acts right now, and I am just getting to Acts 21 where that happens. And I think it's so interesting because they argue to him that, yeah, you should, we told the Gentiles they don't have to observe all these laws, but you're a Jew, and the Jews still have to observe them. That was their thought. And Paul's like, you know what? I care about, in my mind, he cared about the Jews, and he was trying not to lose influence with them. Even though every city he would go into, he'd preach in the synagogue, they would get upset and throw him out, and he'd like shake the dust off his clothes or his feet or whatever, and he'd say, well, I guess I'm going to the Gentiles. And it happens over and over. Like every city he goes into, he starts in the synagogue, because you see it in Romans 10, 11, 12, I don't remember what chapter, 9 or 10 or 11. He says, my heart's desire and prayer to God for Israel is that they might be saved. That was his passion. And he wrote Romans, I think toward the end of his life. He wrote it from Corinthians. So it was second or third missionary journey, or maybe fourth, I don't remember, in the 50s, I think. Okay, sorry, RJ. I've got 2 live streams going at the same time, one on YouTube. So thoughts on trans people. I think the Bible doesn't say anything about trans people, honestly. Some people think it does, but I don't see it. I don't see it. There have been trans people forever. And, I remember hearing stories about somebody who was a woman but dressed like a man, and was in the army or she was a doctor or something, and they didn't find out she was a woman until she died. And I was like, and I never thought anything of stories like that, but now I think back and I'm like, oh, that was a trans man. But of course, without surgery. But trans has nothing to do with surgery. The surgery just helps to align the body with the identity. Okay, so Shawnee has some more comments. The writer of Acts is Luke, a companion of Paul. That is right. Do you think some texts have been subject to revision by the Catholic professor, by the Catholics? Professor Bart Ehrman, PhD, thinks so. I have no comment on that because honestly, I have no knowledge. I'm not a scholar. I know my Bible pretty well, but I don't know all the scholarship on that. And do you think revision by Catholics? Maybe, but some of the manuscripts that we have are, they date back before the Catholic Church. So I don't think that's necessarily a hard and fast rule for everybody. So, yeah, let's see, we got 3 people on YouTube, and I don't see anybody on here. Yeah. So if, it is almost 9 o'clock here, and I kind of want to go to bed early. And by early, I mean be in bed by 10 or earlier. Let's see. Shawnee says, in Romans 7:19, Paul states that he cannot actually do the things he wants to do, but the things he hates, he ends up doing. Well, yeah, I can relate to that. Anybody not relate to that? And if so, tell me, how do you do it? Because I have no idea. That is, I think that is part of, could we call it human nature? When a person, before they become a Christian, they're doing whatever they want. They're happy. And then they become a Christian and realize, now I don't really want to do some of those things anymore. And then, then sorry, I got distracted by your comment. And then, but the habits, we get these like wired connections in our brains and habits and natural patterns, and those take time to change. Sometimes God will change them overnight, but usually, and I know that because like I have a friend who tried to quit smoking and couldn't do it, and finally asked God and woke up with no desire to smoke anymore. But usually we kind of have to go through the process. That's how it generally works out. So to answer your question about the next live stream, I have no idea. I don't. I will just, if you're following me, either here on YouTube or here on TikTok, then you'll get a notification when I'm live. This morning I went on at some point, and I won't be able to go on tomorrow evening or Saturday morning, but maybe Saturday evening, Friday morning. I'll try to do at least a half hour Friday morning. So, well, thank you so much. I really enjoyed the comments. I can tell you know your Bible too. It's good. I love talking about God's Word. All right, well, that wraps it up for tonight, folks. Take care. How do I end this here? Oh, here we go. Okay.